Welcome back to the Power Republic YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a little bit of engine maintenance here. This Mini Rok has had some problems starting, so we're going to replace the ring gear. Okay, some of the teeth wear out, it's aluminium, it's just a service interval is up and we need to get it changed. So let's jump to it. Some of the parts required for this job are, there's a couple of pullers here. This one's for the ring gear, this one's for the clutch shoes. We've got a 5mm in-hex socket, a 17mm impact socket, and a 24mm socket. A little bit of Loctite to lock it all back together. So the first up, remove the nut off the end of the crankshaft. And remove your clutch drum. Then you can take off the nut, the bearing, and this thrust washer. This thrust washer, they're directional. Okay, it's got a little recess here to fit on the crankshaft, so make sure you don't put that on back to front, okay, when you put it back together. You can see over here that I've laid the parts out in order as I pulled them apart, so that you can go back in reverse order when you want to reassemble the engine. So next up, we're going to take off this 24mm nut. Now this is a left-hand thread, so it's reverse direction, so it's going to undo in a clockwise direction and do up in an anti-clockwise direction, opposite to a normal nut. So with your rattle gun, so you can see here that this is a normal right hand thread. Okay, we do the nut up like so, and then here is your left hand thread and it goes backwards, so you do an up that way, you're doing up this way. To get this one on, left, right, okay? So they're opposite. That's just a little trick for that one. That's not common for most things that you work on your go-kart. So there's a washer here, just take that off. It's a wedge washer or wave washer, whatever you want to call it, spring-loaded washer. It's just to keep tension on the nut that holds the clutch assembly onto the crankshaft. So for the next exercise, we've got to remove these 3 screws that hold the clutch shoes to the ring gear. Now you can see here that it's starting to delaminate, so we're going to change the friction material on the clutch shoes. So we're going to change the clutch shoes as well as the ring gear. So grab your 5mm T-bar and put your piston stop in, and then just crack these nuts and you should be able to unscrew them. They've been put on with Loctite so they don't come loose, so sometimes it's hard to get them undone with the rattle gun, whereas the T-bar you can sort of get a little bit extra leverage on there without rounding the screws out. Okay, so next up we've got the Vortex clutch puller here. It just screws inside there, and then we've got the jacking bolt which goes on the end of the crankshaft. Spin that around until it hits the piston stop. Grab your 17mm ring spanner, and then that just pulls the clutch shoes straight off the ring gear. Oops. Okay, and there's a little dowel pin here that lines up down there on the ring gear, and that is what drives the clutch shoes. Okay, so now we've got to use this puller, and it's going to screw into those bolt holes, and we're going to pull the ring gear off the crankshaft. $5mm T-bar, just screw those in so that they're all level. So this clutch puller has a 16mm. Okay, so just crack that, and then if you can't get it off because it's fouling on this little cover, you can just whiz that off as well. This is just the Bendix cover. Alright, so you can see on the back here that all the teeth are sort of chewed out. So this one was really having a lot of trouble trying to get started. When you see that sort of wear, it's time for a bit of an upgrade. You can see the keyway here in the ring gear. This is going to have to line up with the key on the crankshaft. So you can see here that this keyway is a bit loose and it just falls out. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a little trick to how to get that to stay in the crankshaft. So all we're going to do is get a center punch. And we're going to punch a couple little holes here on the side. One there. Chuck another one here. Okay, and you can see on the side there we've got a couple little center punches. So that's just enough to bruise it up so that it fits down in the crankshaft. So put the keyway back into the crankshaft. It can be a bit tricky. Okay, and you can see that it's just wanting to sit up. So then you got to just tap it back into the crankshaft lightly with you can use a long bolt, you could use the T-bar. Okay, so you've got the 5mm T-bar there. So you're going to use your 5mm Allen key just to lightly tap that keyway into the crankshaft. So now that'll stop it from just falling out really easily. You can get your ring gear, line up the keyway, and you can be pretty much guaranteed that that keyway is not going to fall out of the crankshaft. Next up, use a tiny bit of Loctite. Insert the washer. Okay, you want to have the taper out. Put that on there. And remembering that this is a left-handed thread nut, so you do it up fractor bunt. Hang on, just get it started. So last but not least, don't forget to do the nut up. Done. So you can see these clutch shoes up close, the friction material is starting to peel away. Okay, so that's just from contamination from some grease that's made the glue and a bit of heat, obviously some general wear and tear. These also have a habit of cracking through here sometimes with use. Okay, so you might be at the track and your chain sounds funny, or the cart's clunking as it goes in and out of the pits, and the driver just says something's not right. If the clutch locks on, it's generally one of these has broken, and you need just to do what we did here and remove the shoes and replace them with a brand new set. So you can see there's a dowel pin here. There's also the corresponding hole in the ring gear. So this is all for the drive, you know, it's a positive reinforcement. So line that guy up there with that and just put him onto the crankshaft like so. Okay, and then you can just get your hammer and lightly tap those guys on. Get your 3 screws, same thing, tiny drop of Loctite. Screw them in there. So we're just going to reverse the process. This guy we had to take off to get the ring gear, so just chuck him back on there. So with your parts laid out nice and neat, you just have to pick up them in order and place them back on, especially if you're not familiar with the operation. So first up, the thrust washer. You can see here that it has the recess that goes onto the crankshaft that away. Then the bearing. Then your brand new sprocket on your clutch drum. Then the retaining washer. Don't forget a tiny bit of Loctite. Then your 17mm nut. Grab your ring spanner or socket, impact wrench, whatever you're going to use, and just nip it. That's a wrap. Okay, so that's how you change your ring gear and clutch shoes on the Vortex Mini Rok engine. It's very similar to some of the other engines that we work on here, so you can use this as a reference for your IME X30, KA100s here in Australia, and the engines similar to that. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment sections below. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Power Republic, or go to our website www.powerrepublic.com.au. See you in the next video.